Hello everyone, welcome back to day 3 of Python Beginner Friendly series. Today's topic is Python data types. Before we deep dive, let me welcome you back to my channel Tech with Machines. Today's agenda is going to go through various data types which Python supports. Python supports several built-in data types and they are fundamental for storing and manipulating data. So we are gonna go through each one of them as you can see here in the video screen. We are going to go through numeric types, boolean types, none type. Yes, Python do support a type called none. We will go into details in few minutes. Set types, mapping type and sequence types. We are also gonna go deeper into sequence, mapping and set in few other videos, but for today we will just give an overview of how these types are supported and how can we declare and define them in Python. Let's start with numeric types. As you can see, there are three types defined here: int, float, complex. Int being integers and they are just whole numbers without a decimal point, similar across all languages. Float being floating point numbers which are generally decimals and they can be in exponential form as well, and complex being the ones which are with imaginary unit and specifically in the form of a plus b multiplied by j, where j is the imaginary unit. Now this is a general definition of numeric types, but we can also go through how to declare and define them. In video, let me go back to my ID and I am continuing in the same project Python Kickstarter which we created in video 2, and I just created a new file called DataTypes.py. You can do the same or you can create a new project, whatever works for you. Now let's try to define an integer variable or a variable and assign an integer value to it. In last video, we learned that how we can actually declare and assign a value to a variable. So first we name the variable, so we will name it x, and then we do an assignment using assignment operator and we are going to give it an integer. And let's print it as well so that we can know that it is being assigned properly. So we are again gonna run in the same way, use the terminal and use Python and give the name of the file, or do the right click and run the file directly. Also we are gonna define the float, which is, let's take the pi value and print it, and once we run this it's gonna print the y value. And also let's define the third type as z and say it's a complex number, so we are gonna just say 2 plus 3j and then print the z value. Let's print it and we have all three types here. Now one thing we can also discover here is that I can also print the type of a particular variable. Now how do you know that, how do you actually get to know that what is the type of the particular variable which you just defined? For this, we just use a built-in type function and pass the variable for which we want to know type for, and the same thing we are going to do for y and the same thing we are going to do for z. So let's do it along. So we are going to go for y, copy the same thing here, change the variable, and then we are going to do the same for z. Here also do the same thing and change the variable z. Now let's run it and format it properly. Let's run it now and you can see it is giving int, float, complex. So magical, right? We are able to declare and define a variable with different data types, as well as we are also able to understand how we can know the type of a variable. Let's continue with the next data type, Boolean types. Boolean is generally referred as bool in Python and it represents just true values, true or false. Even 0 or 1 for that matter also represents Boolean. So let's try to declare a variable as Boolean. Here again we'll do the same thing. I'm just gonna define it, let's say is valid, and I'm gonna give a value as true and just print the type of is valid. So let's run it again, and as you can see, it just printed the value is valid as bool. Now, one thing to notice here, in general, you would have seen in Java the true and false are generally in lowercase, but this is very important in Python. The Boolean value can't be like a small true or a small false. Let's say if I try to, let's copy this again and try to, let's copy this again and try to basically give it a small value. Instead of a capital T, I will just give it a small t. So now as you can see, it's already complaining that this doesn't look valid, and I'm just going to run it as well. What happens? So when you run it, it says that okay, true is not defined. Now if I would have quoted it, would have considered it as a string, but generally a boolean will be considered as only capital true, or for that matter a capital F in false. So this is very important to understand about the bool, that bool is generally true with a capital T and false with a capital F. Another type in Python is none type. It generally represents absence of a value or a null value. Like in Java, when you initialize an object, you can say it null specifically, but it's not of any particular type. Whereas in Python, none is generally a data type. So let's discover that how it's a type, and we will do the same thing with the type here. So I've just already created a presence as none, and then I have printed the type of presence as well. And as you can see in my console in the terminal here, it does mention that it's of none type. So generally you will use none whenever you are defining or initializing a variable and you are not sure about its value yet, or you are initializing it at the value in a for loop or anything. So the basic default value which can provide to a variable can be none, or to an object can be none. Set types. So there are two kind of sets in Python. Now what is set? Generally set is the collection which can have unique items. It doesn't store duplicates like list. So there are two sets. Set, which is first a set, which is a collection of unique items, and it's mutable, which means I can change the value within a set. I can add or remove a value in the set. But another is frozen set, which is basically an immutable set. You can't really change the value, or you can't modify it after the creation. Set is generally unordered. It doesn't save the order of the values which you are saving in it. So let's discover this, how frozen set is immutable and how actually set is defined in Python. Let's go back to the editor. I'm just going to clean up the other data types and only work right now with set. So let me create one set. Let me call it unique set, and I'm gonna just give it basic values. Now set generally is assigned a value with a curly brace. So there are two data types which generally start with a curly brace, like a dictionary or a set. But when you're defining a set, you can give a curly brace, and when you give a value to it, this will generally mean that it's a set. Now I will print this, and I will just print it, and let me run this just once. So it's printing the unique set, right? And also let me just do a type here of the unique set just to show what type it belongs to. And as you can see, it's basically printing the class set. Now set also has certain functions or certain methods which it provides to add or remove an element. So I can just go here and I can say unique set dot add. As you can see here, it is defining all the functions the set has, right? We will discover each one of them in the next video, but for now let's use a basic add and try to add a element here as another 4 here, and then let's print it again and see if it does exist or not, right? So now let's run it again and see. Yes, it does exist. So it got added, the 4 got added, right? Now I'll convert this unique set itself in frozen set. So I'm gonna create and name it as unique frozen set, and then I'm just gonna use frozen set and provide it a value of my set, sorry, unique set, right? And now I'm gonna print this first and also print its type. So let's copy the above one only and try to just replace the variable. So I'm just to save time, so I'm just gonna do this and let's try to run it. So as you can see, the above one is set and the below one is frozen set, right? Now let's test how it is immutable and how you can't actually modify the value post creation. Now I'm gonna do the same thing on frozen set what I did on this set. I'm gonna assume that I can add a value to it, and I will just add 4 to it and try to print it again, and we will see that it will fail even before that. So when it runs, as you can see, it is saying that frozen set object has no attribute add, because you can't do anything like add in the frozen set. So you can't basically modify frozen set at all, right? So even if I try to do that as well, and you can see that basically it has copy will create again a new set. It has every function which can create a new set, but it doesn't have a manipulation or a function which can do a manipulation in place. So there is no modification in place for a frozen set because it is immutable. So that's what really immutable means. You can't modify once you create it, be it set, be it another data type which we go through. So wherever you will hear immutable as a word, which means that you really can't add or remove elements from that data type. If you have to do that, then it generally will create a new set or a new object, right? So this is all about set. We'll also go through, as I mentioned, we'll also go through different functions of set in another video, but for now we're going to keep it just to the definition of the set. Next, let's talk about mapping types. It's only one, dictionary. It's very easy data type in Python. It's the most go-to and useful data type in Python. Generally, when you will start creating an application, you'll find its usage most in your application code. So dictionary is more like a go-to data type in Python. It's collection of key value pairs, and it's generally mutable and it's unordered. So how do you basically define a dictionary? Pretty simple and straightforward. I have cleared up our previous history of sets, and now we're going to just work with dictionary here. So let's create a dictionary, and I'm going to call it super useful. I'll name it super useful, and then just I will create a name as a key, and I'll provide a value called RAM. Let's create another key as age, and I'm going to give it 30. Let's create city as another key, and I'm gonna give it, let's say, Bangalore, right? Now if I print this, again same thing, let's print it, and then let's print its type, and also let's see how we can access a value from a dictionary. More detail we'll do in another video, but for now let's do a basic access of a dictionary. So we are gonna do print super type of super useful, and let's run this, and as we can see, it printed the dictionary and as well as it printed the type as dict, correct? Now let's also try to access a value of a particular key in this. Now if I have to access a particular value, I can do two things. I can either do subscript, so I will do super useful and I'll do name in that, or I can do super useful and I can just get the value of name. Now what is the difference between two? We'll also discuss that, but for now let's run it and see what happens. So if I just run it, as you can see, both gave me the value RAM of particular key name, right? I can also add a new key to the dictionary, and I can again use a subscript and tell, let's say, it's pin code. and I am gonna give the pin code as 560034. Now let's print this and print again the super useful dictionary and see what happens. Now as you can see, it has already added a new key called pin code. So this is how you basically define a dictionary, and it's mutable. Basically you can modify it, you can add new keys, you can remove keys, you can access keys using a two different ways. Now what is the main difference between these two ways of accessing a value for a particular key from a dictionary? We'll discuss in more depth in another video, but this is all about mapping data type, which is nothing but a dictionary. Final data type, which is sequence types. This is the most informative one, and we will go through this one in deeper details in next video. As I mentioned, we'll generally cover sequence, set, and mapping one more time in more details. But let's go through its general definition. A list is the first sequence type, which is an ordered collection of items, and it's mutable, which means you can modify it. And how we create a list in Python, we'll just discover that in few minutes. Another is tuple. Tuple is also ordered collection of items, but the only difference between tuple and list is that tuple is immutable. The same way as frozen set was immutable, tuple is also immutable. You can't modify once you create it. Then second is range. Range is generally a sequence of numbers which you can generate by a range function. And you will also see the usage of range in for loops and iterations, right? String is a sequence type in Python, and it's immutable sequence of characters. So that's might be new to you if you come from the world of Java, where a string is more like a wrapper or primitive type, whereas in and even though in Java also string is immutable, but in Python it is considered as a sequence type, and it's considered as a sequence of characters which are immutable, which means once created you can't modify it. Only modification which can happen will result into a new string. Now let's go through each one of them, how we declare each one of them, and how you basically access them. So let's start with list. List, generally how we do is that we create it with square brackets. So let me create a list called, let me name it simple, let me say it my list, and I'm gonna create and give it elements, and I can give elements of different types. It can be heterogeneous, so I will just give numbers, integers, float, right? So this is how the list is created, right? So let's do the basic ones which we continue to do, which is my list, and then just print the type of the list as well. So we are gonna do the type and then print the type of this particular list. So once we run this, it is showing me the list, and as well as showing me the type as list. Let's define tuples, range, and string as well, and then we can also discover few functions which are used to access them, right? So now let's create my tuple. I'm going to call everything as my. So let's create tuple. Now tuple is generally initialized using parenthesis, whereas my list is generally the square brackets, right? So let's give the same values that we give the list. So we are gonna give it like this, and we are gonna print same way tuple as well, and its type, right? So let's copy this and print it again, and just change the value to tuple here, correct? Let's run this again, and you will see that it's gonna print the type as tuple and the values. Now ranges, which are generally used in loops and can generate a sequence of numbers. So let's say I'm gonna create a range, and I'm gonna create a range from, let's say, 1 to 10, and I will say my range 1 to 10, right? And I'm just gonna print this range, and I'm gonna print the type of the my range as well. Now once we run this, we can see that there was a range, and the type was nothing but range, right? Now strings again, in Python there are three ways of writing strings. Now you can use single quote, you can use double quote, and you can also use um, um, three quotes. Generally that is for most for the comments. Like you can do string like this as well, it will also be considered as string. Or you can write string with single quote. Let's say I'm saying my string and I'm gonna give it single quote and do ABC. In Java you might not be used to it, because in Java if you are using a single quote you're basically defining a character. But in string you can actually use single quote or double quote or three quotes to define a string, right? So here I have used a single quote and I'm just gonna print it, and I'm also gonna just give it a double quote as well just to show you. And I'm gonna just do this and I'm gonna again print it. Let me print the type as well in both the scenarios, what happens. So let's do type in this case and also print the type again in this case. So let's run this again. And as you can see, in both cases it's string. In one case I have used single quote, in another case I have used double quote, right? So this is all about the sequence types. Now sequence types support various operations like slicing, indexing, concatenation. You can do reverse, right? Or you can actually access them from the end of the list or from the end of the tuple. But all of this we'll cover in next video. We're going to keep it to the definition of the sequence types, because sequence types is a broader topic and we might want to just keep one video just to understand sequence types. That's it for today. I hope you liked the video, and I hope if you like the video you'll subscribe to it. If not, feel free to come again and check other videos of the series. Thank you so much and keep learning.